Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Evolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener support radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. This is Sacred Matrix, and tonight it's actually, we have filling in for Janet and Sasha. It's myself, Kevin Estrella, and Karen Patrick. Karen, are you in? Oh, maybe we don't have Karen yet. Karen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there we go.
Little trouble with the mute button.
There we go. Perfect. And has our guest arrived?
I don't know.
I'm calling her now.
Perfect. Okay, great. That's great. Yes, actually, we have a very interesting guest.
Hildegard?
Oh, there we are. Hildegard?
Hello. Yeah?
There you are. Perfect.
Great.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much for having me. I appreciate your interest.
I was just introducing you. Just starting to introduce you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, actually, yes. Hildegard and I met Hildegard a few years ago, and we became very close friends. And she has a very interesting story to tell. And I'm just going to read a little bit about Hildegard, so we can explain exactly who Hildegard is. Now, she grew up in an extended family in a farm in Germany, and her professional background is in languages and international trade, as well as broadcast journalism. She's lived and worked in Europe and South Africa and in Canada, where she raised her 4 children, who are all grown up now. But during her early 30s, she had a near-death experience, and she had a soul essence exchange during which she came in contact with intelligence from the Andromeda system. And since then, she's been receiving ongoing telepathic guidance from her cosmic brother, Louis Marr, who is a 7th dimensional consciousness scientist from the Andromeda-galaxy. Louis Marr is in charge of the walk-in project. Hildegard's soul was chosen to participate. Now, what I'm trying to explain here is that Hildegard is a walk-in hybrid from Andromeda. It was a life-changing experience for her, and it uprooted her essence of her soul at a point in her life when her children were very small, and there was a soul exchange in her body, and who she is now came into this body, into this world, and she woke up in the hospital telling them that she was a how does she put it, a silicone crystalline DNA being, and that she really didn't belong there. And her husband thought that she had lost her mind, and she had to learn everything from scratch, learning how to change diapers, how to bake a cake, and really try and integrate herself into society in her young age. So it was quite traumatizing for her, but that was part of her mission. So she uses her extrasensory perceptions and insights into non-physical aspects of the human being existence to assist her clients in becoming higher aware of their inner guidance systems. And her goal is to assist all those willing to live guided by their inner soul wisdom. She's also the creator of the monthly Experiencers Gathering Group in Toronto, it's a designated safe place for individuals who have had experiences with ongoing ETs, and we talk about the things that are going on in our world. And you can contact her at her website at higherawareness.com. That's HIRRE awareness. And I was very happy to bring Hildegard into the show. She has been a great inspiration for me. We've both helped each other numerously over the years, and we've both been an inspiration to each other. Hildegard, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for this lovely intro, and you certainly painted a very nice picture of what actually went on during my early 30s, because indeed it was very disorienting, to say the least, and very isolating, because what I know today and the clarity I have today, I didn't have then. But let me maybe begin by saying I have to dispel any kind of fears here. It's not like there is some energy or some intelligence that come and take over your body. This is not what it is. What needs to be prefaced in this context is that as human beings, I at least was conditioned to believe that I was a physical thing. And what I've learned since then is that we are a spirit, unlimited intelligence, which a small aspect of which is housed in this particular vessel. But my essence, energy simultaneously exists in different realms and in different realities. And of course, I didn't know any of that, because I was of the world view that, you go study, you learn, you marry, you have kids, and then you live happily ever after. I had no intention of consciously wanting to experience this. But again, I was not conscious. And for those who might be concerned that, oh my God, what's going to happen? Can it just happen that, during my sleep, or if I fall sick, my essence will be switched? I don't think that is ever possible unless we on a soul level, and I for myself believe, and I can only speak with authority about my own experiences, I chose to have that energy exchange. And the way I see the human body is much like a computer. We have a hard drive, and the hard drive has different kind of software programs it can access. And so the soul essence, let's say that the software that animated my body up to the age of 33, had an agreement with the 7D Andromeda essence that came in 1992, that the two of them, or these two softwares, were switching places. So it's not that Hildegard or the vessel of Hildegard was a victim of any sort, not at all. It was part of the conscientization process that a soul that has volunteered to come into this 3D world has enrolled in. It's something I wanted. So, yeah, that's an essence of the word. But the most distressing thing initially was that now we are in 2018, we have words, we understand, or it's part of the general collective awareness what a computer is. The word software is understood. We know a lot more about how things are connected through Wi-Fi. We can't see it, but it works. We have the internet today. We didn't have these things in 1992, or at least I didn't. Maybe some people did, but I didn't get internet until much later. And I didn't know anything about computers either. So I didn't have the words to express what I had just experienced. And what had I experienced? I was running after a child of mine who's about 1, heading for the road. And the last thing I remember, I was running after him, trying to prevent him from getting into traffic. And the next thing I knew, everything went black. Then there was a point of light in the distance. And for a split second, I would see my neighbors run together. Somebody holding that little one. He didn't get hit by the car. He was taken onto the arm of by another neighbor. And I saw these people running together there. And I was thinking, what's going on? And why do you look so frightened? There was my 5-year-old holding the 3-year-old. And I could see the panic in their eye, but they wouldn't hear me. And I could hear, I could see, I could function. And then as I thought, well, what's going on? I saw this point of light in the distance and suddenly realized that the light was so incredibly bright that I needed to protect my eyes from that brilliance. Trying to cover my eyes, I realized I had no hands, I had no body. What was going on? Was I dead? Because I had been through an extended period of traumas. I had lost a lot of weight. I had all sorts of health issues, and I had collapsed before, and yet the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. They just said, be happy. You're a mother of 3. Your youngest baby is just a year old, and you lost all your baby fat. You should be happy. There's nothing wrong with you. You know, maybe you need to go on some Prozac or some antidepressant because it could be postpartum depression. Anyway, long and the short of it, I'm in this light, and I suddenly realized that I am communicating with somebody. I don't have a body, I don't have a mouth, but I'm speaking with somebody. And that person said, well, don't be afraid, come closer. And I came closer, and I had this feeling of being embraced. It was such a soft, gentle hug, like the feeling was as if you have, you know, the softest cashmere sweater blanket put around you. And I can't recall exactly what was said. However, I found myself agreeing with what was said. And in essence, I was told I had to go back, but I wouldn't want for anything. I might not get everything I want, and there were going to be further contacts. And sure enough, next contact happened. I was in a department store. I visited my parents in Germany, and I had my little one with me. They had left him at home, and I did some errands. I found myself in a department store, and suddenly from the right corner of my right eye and the left corner of my left eye, it was like a theater's heavy curtains would close on me, and it was black, and then it was white again. And I found myself lying on a bed surrounded by 12 very different-looking creatures, humanoid beings. They had chest-long, platinum-color, straight hair. Their eyes were about twice the size of ours and a little more almond-shaped than ours. The ears, if I could see them at all, I just saw it by the person who was standing closest to me on the right. They seemed to be a bit closer, more forward than the human ears. And their eyes were beautifully blue. And then I found myself lying there, and I had a body that was also white. Like I saw my legs, my arms, my head. And there were 2 people by my feet, 2 by my head, and 4 on either side. And the person that was standing closest to me to my right was looking into my eyes and communicating with me. His mouth wasn't moving. And I seemed to be very comfortable with that. I understood what was said. And in essence, what was said is what I then later on shared with the physician in a hospital as well, that I had volunteered to have a 7-dimension essence energy enter a 3D body. And because the density of the 3D body would not allow this whole procedure to happen all at once, that essence exchange would continue for a certain period of time as I was able to integrate more and more and clean out the physicality, detoxify the body. I would have a couple more visits coming up there, but in due time, I would fully be able to integrate this awareness. Now, while I was there, it all made very good sense, but then coming out of this state back into the 3D world, none of it made sense. In the second passing as well, there was an event where I collapsed back here in Toronto. We lived in the most western suburb of Toronto at the time, and I had one of these collapsing incidents again, and of course next of kin is called. And so I found myself in a situation where I woke with the physician on the right and my then husband of 10 years to the left. And the gentleman said, "So what went on?" And I thought, well, I had a consciousness upgrade. I had a soul essence exchange. I'm a consciousness scientist from Andromeda-galaxy. And I, now have a crystalline essence replaced in a carbon-based body. And it takes a little bit to integrate this. And the people looked at me. I saw the physician exchanging a glance with my then spouse and said, "Well, shall we inject something?" And I heard myself say, no, give me pills. I don't know what my panic was about, the injection. But going home with my spouse and back to my house was all very dramatic and traumatic because I didn't have any conscious recollection initially of this man. I found the whole process of going into this little metal box and have these other metal boxes run by our box called cars on highways. I had challenge with that. I was very afraid of the whole concept of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The kids coming, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." I didn't really know what to do with that either. And for a while there, I had a person communicate with me telepathically. She called herself Ashta, and she explained everything about the physical body and how we need to eat and drink and food preparation and, how women put on their makeup and how to go shopping and all of these things.
So basically, she was tutoring you on Earth to help you integrate into into a 3D world.
Yes, exactly. And as this was going on, much of the databases from the previous essence came alive again. So I began to remember, oh, this is my husband, these were my children, the neighborhood I used to live in. So it helped me function a little. However, the new awareness felt the food in the fridge were poisonous. The, personal care products in the bathroom are poisonous. I have never studied medicine. I've never studied chemistry. I have a background in languages and international trade. So I have never done chemistry to a great extent. And if you would have asked me what propylene glycol and sulfate and parabens are, I wouldn't even understand the words. But this is part of the integration process that I had to go through, because apparently, and now 30 years after the fact, many of your listeners probably are very well aware that there are many human beings on this planet who have sensitivities to what's sold as food in grocery stores, or as personal care products or household cleansers or laundry detergent. And we have been conditioned that we need to use these things. And so it was quite a shock for my husband at the time when one day he came home and the bathroom and the fridge and everything had been thrown into the garbage because his wife suddenly was no longer interested in making pot roast. She was, frying rice and stir-frying vegetables and buying almond butter and seeing the need for buying supplementations from far away that he had never heard of before. And so it's quite understandable, as many people in our experience group also share, that if the person who has these experiences doesn't have anybody close to them to relate to, who believes that what's going on in them is real, it can be quite a difficult undertaking. And for me, at some point, Louis Ma said, take your kids and run. And it was a good thing I did, because it was quite clear that my marriage, the way it had been, was no longer functioning with the consciousness that I was carrying, because I could not expect my spouse to understand what was going on. So when I say we need to listen to our inner guidance, yes, we do. It's a very difficult thing to do, but ultimately the only way to ever live a life that's congruent with our innermost soul values, if that makes any sense.
Hey, Hildegard, I had one question to ask you, because I'm trying to understand here. So before all this happened, now your soul, I'm trying to understand, are you still the soul of Hildegard who was born here on Earth, gave birth to children, got married in that, or that soul, that original soul left, and you're just a pure soul who came in from Andromeda, or is it that somehow you're still the Hildegard from Earth, but you integrated a second soul into your body? I'm trying to understand that.
I think what happened was that, like, my definition of soul is it's a limited consciousness, an unlimited consciousness, of which a limited aspect enters a specific vehicle, which in this case was the body of Hildegard up to the age 33. So I think what happened to me was the essence of the 3D that had animated the body up to 33 over time left as more of the 7D aspect came in. It's part of the same soul. I understand there are people who say it's nothing to do with a completely different soul. I believe it's, if you look at it like a Wi-Fi network, or you have, let's say, a Shaw, maybe your internet provider, let's say, and somebody else may use AT&T or something. So I think my soul bits were of the same soul essence. And it's just that the 3D aspect left and a different network essence aspect came in. But it is still the same soul. Now, I've heard of people where they are convinced that it's not the same thing. I don't know. Like, I cannot really prove that. I just go with my inner knowing. And that's what cuts from within me. And it seems to make sense because initially when I went through this turmoil, because I didn't know who to trust anymore, I didn't know how to trust my own judgment anymore, I began ferociously journaling. And in my journal, it was, it's 7 o'clock, one of the children is going to wake up, what am I going to do next, etc. In the journaling, a lot of the answers came to me, and one of the explanations, so what's going on? What happened to me? How come the medical system can't find what's going on with my body? They said, well, because Western medicine denies the existence of the soul. They are materially focused on the physicality only, does not allow for anything else. Whereas what I found out through my journal and through the communication, which Louis Marr is the contact from Andromeda, who would then come and write down who is speaking, because I thought, what's going on? Am I losing my mind? I hear all this different information. What's real and what's not? And so I began to consider all the influences, all the info that was flowing through me, pretended they are people, and I would just take one person into my office at a time, and then I would write down Louis Marr, and then I'd write what he had to say, and then I'd write down what Ashta Asina got to say. And then over time, as I would go back in my journal book, things would begin to make sense to me. And as I went through this for about a year or two, I suddenly felt that something inside of me was really clicking. It was almost like there was a hollowness between my legs and my head, and my torso was like hollow. I almost felt like a cannon was shot through me, and people might be able to look right through me. Yet over time, it was a weird feeling. It felt like I became more solid in my torso, to the point that I could even feel something like a zipper, and the zipper thingy eventually disappeared.
Yes,
and
explain.
That,
please tell the our listeners about the zipper experience and how you actually physically felt, because that's fascinating.
Well, it literally felt like there was a part of my body missing. And over the years, as I began to integrate more of the 7D understanding, and I might have to explain a little bit more about that, because I asked, why? Why is this happening? What's the point? And who am I? I'm not that educated. I'm a little stay-at-home mom with research children. I'm not that important and educated. And what can I do to make the world a better place? Because the reason for why this was happening was there was a need on this planet for a shift in consciousness, and people had volunteered, or better said, soul essences had volunteered to come into this body as a walk-in, such as I had experienced. So it wouldn't take 30 years to develop this physical shell, and the consciousness could be accelerated much faster. And by a 7D essence coming in this body, I was going to anchor a higher vibration into this planet, which ultimately would benefit all people. And I thought, that is ridiculous. I don't understand. Why am I that important? And the understanding and the clarity came as more and more of my physicality seems to be prepared to take more and more of that higher vibration on. And with it, it felt like imagine you're coloring the torso of a human body on a coloring book, on a piece of paper. And it felt like with every new insight and every new understanding I gained, and every decision I made in the 3D, to be true to my inner voice, to follow my inner knowing. So pulling myself out of a marriage that I felt was not really conducive to my growth as well as my children's growth, it was a hypocrisy, and I needed to pull myself out of that. The minute I had done that, but made a physical massive shift, my health improved. I could suddenly sleep better. I could feel my energy come back. And inside, it felt like that torso was being more and more colored in. I felt more solid. And I think I felt my energetic body and the physicality becoming increasingly one. And they became stronger from the inside out. Because what I didn't know, that soul creates body, not the other. So the software develops the hardware. So the human physicality is created from the inside out. And as the new 7D essence started to be anchored more solidly in the body, I felt more solid and I became more vibrant. My entire appearance even changed. Like I had a house fire, so I don't have too many pictures of way back when. But when I was at my parents' house and I looked at some of the pictures from the early 1980s, even late 1980s, 1990, and then look at what I look like now, it's totally different people. So that essence energy eventually, I don't want to use take the body over, but it transforms the body, and our physical body is supposed to be always changing. Every 7 years, you have entirely new cells and a new body anyway. If that makes any sense. So the zipper experience then was the final bit of me coming together, and it felt a little bit weird, like I would actually touch my belly, and I'm going, that's so strange. There was nothing visible. But over time, I felt completely whole, like I don't have this anymore. It took maybe 2 or 3 years. The interesting thing about the walk-in project that Louis Ma told me was on this planet, he's not a lecturer. He'll just say a word or two, and the rest you have to figure out yourself. And then I would scream into my journal, come on, tell me, I need to know. If you know, why don't you tell me? And he'll always say, human beings have been conditioned to always do what other people tell them. If this is going to be anything worthwhile here, you got to figure things out on your own. It's kind of like we throw you a bone or we give you a little hint, but you got to put the pieces together yourself. So
trust me, I know all about it. It's very frustrating.
It is frustrating only to our logical conditioned minds, because we have been so conditioned to do as we are told. And to suddenly have nobody to tell you what to do, that can be a challenge. I agree.
They want us to figure something out, and so it's like, okay, what am I supposed to figure out? What do you mean? They throw me a freaking bone here, you know? Yeah, I know exactly.
Right. But you see, here's the thing. I had a broken body, and I was supposed to heal myself because I had the power to heal myself. So I wrote in my journal. And I'm going, that's just going to be fast enough. There's a couple of kids I need to lift and carry. I lived in a townhouse that had, I don't know how many, 3 flights of stairs. And I didn't have all that energy. And I needed to lift these kids up. And I needed to drive with a baby. And I had the groceries to carry and all. And so I was rather impatient. What if I was not going to be able to put this together? And so one night, there was this massive hand. It was an invisible hand. I was living alone with 3 little kids and a golden retriever dog. But it felt like there was this massive hand waking me up and said, écris in French, write. So I had an old typewriter, didn't have a computer yet, and I wrote the story, Never Enough, the story of a planet reborn. And I remember that night I'd gone to bed saying, God, Muhammad, Allah, Buddha, Shiva, Vishnu, Krishna, whoever you might be, I have a broken body. I have 3 little kids. My mom and dad don't even talk to me because Catholics don't divorce. They go straight to hell. So I'm all alone. What if I die? Nobody is able to look after these kids. I need help. So I was sending this prayer out for somebody to come and help me. And so the story was my help. And the take-home message of the story was, do you let love or fear dominate your heart? So whenever I had to make a decision, yet I had no facts to base a decision on, and I'm sure some of you can relate to that, you only have your gut feeling to go by. And then whenever I would say my journal, so now what I'm going to do, the answer was, read your story. Do you come from fear or do you come from love? And so I was very gently guided to check in and become conscious and aware of my mental patterns, of my belief system. What am I thinking? Is it a thought of guilt, shame, blame, judgment, criticism, jealousy, hatred, resentment? Or can I master a thought of appreciation? Well, I may not have a crystal ball how I'm going to pay next month's rent. However, there was still some food in the fridge. The children were healthy and asleep in their bed. They had a roof over their head. There was a lot to be grateful for. But in my distress and in my conditioned, fearful state of mind, I failed to be appreciative of what happened. And so with the little hints from Louis Marr, and he would, for years, he would say, don't ask me, read the children a bedtime story. The answers, you have them. They're all there. Read the story. And so over the years, I learned to not ask unless there was something that I felt I need to have a little hint for again. And Louis Marr is not somebody who would continuously chatter away. He would just say, okay, I think you need to hear this. And then I take my pen and I say, okay, slow it down, write. And when I write, and the way telepathy works in my books is I receive images, I receive pictures. And I write down what I see in these images. This is also how the intuitive awareness process works, consulting process works. People will communicate something to me, and I have an image. The image may not make any logical sense to me, yet when I use that image and maybe ask a question or just describe the image, then the person generally knows what this is about. So I learned that in one of those sessions where he said, okay, I think you need to know this now. Well, what about this walk-in project? What is all of this about? And Louis Marr said, this planet has been under the control by not so benevolent entities from a different realm. And the leaders of this land are puppets to those manipulators. These entities are not creative. Human beings are creators. They can create. Yet apparently these controlling entities are manipulators. And hence they feed on human fear. And they're brilliant in psychically manipulating human beings because human beings have not really been given the true explanation of what it means to be a human and how we were actually designed to function on this planet.
Yes, our true nature was purposely hidden and buried in order to maintain or teach us their view of reality in order to control us better.
Right. I mean, in those days, I had not seen the movie The Matrix or Avatar or They Live. These movies came out much later. The first thing I actually had that was so exciting and encouraging for me was a book by David Icke, The Truth Shall Set You Free, that seemed to talk a little bit about what I had a knowing of from within myself. It was the first sign from the outside world that there was something bigger and more profound going on than just the 3D. And the Cryon books, when Lee Carroll, a scientist, an engineer, I think at some point turned channel, started to bring out the Cryon books. Oh my God, I inhaled these beautiful Cryon books like nothing else, because again, what was said there gave me some encouragement that there was nothing really wrong with me. I was not crazy, much to the contrary. I was becoming aware. I was in the process of awakening to a different aspect of myself. But back to what Louis Ma said about the Walk-In Project, he said, so as people on this planet, and we go back to assuming that the planet had been manipulated and controlled by people who had no creative ability, yet great manipulative ability. And so human beings on this planet had been fallen prey to their enslavement, if you so will. There are entities in different worlds, and he compared the different realms with an apartment building or a high-rise building of, let's say, 125 stories, so 125 dimensions. And he said, so if somebody in the first floor or the second floor or the 50th floor lights a fire, chances are the whole apartment building is impacted. Wouldn't you say so? And I said, yeah, of course. And he said, well, that's what's going on. So planet Earth does not exist in isolation, and those of a greater awareness and who have a unity consciousness. And I said, well, what is a unity consciousness? Well, all the cells in your body create this unit called the body of Hildegard. I said, sure. He says, well, the universe is a construct where everything is connected with everything else. So nothing exists in isolation. So now, when these people on this planet Earth started to blow up the nuclear weapons, and they used to experiment, make nuclear tests, and eventually dropped a couple of nuclear bombs, that's when councils of higher realms got together and say, what can we do? Because every evolving planet is initially to be left alone to evolve on their own terms, and nobody from the outside can interfere. And so what was decided upon was that there were souls of a higher evolutionary state to volunteer to embody in the 3D, and their job was simply to develop a life that they felt most joyous about. The key here is to do what gives you the most joy, because joy vibrates higher than fear and depression and sadness. We were actually called just to do what gives us the most joy. And my databases were programmed to raise children. Because initially I said, so why could I not just be alone? And why did I need to move into a body where I was immediately responsible for 3 other life forms? That didn't make sense. And so Louis Ma responded, yes, it did, because your program was so self-destructive that if you couldn't develop the love for these other creatures, you would have destroyed the vessel. You would have committed suicide. And he was very accurate in that. the interesting story is, so in 1992, so shortly after a couple of these near-death experiences happened, I was sitting on a park bench waiting to see a counselor. I was still living with my then husband at the time, and we were going to see a counselor, marriage counselor of sorts. I was sitting on a park bench, and suddenly out of nowhere, and this was in the fall, November, lots of leaves on the ground, a public park in Toronto, and there was a gentleman suddenly showing up, and I didn't hear how he had gotten to my bench. He sat next to me, and I had been crying, wearing sunglasses, very distraught, and wasn't in the mood for conversation. And the guy said to me, well, if you know what's wrong, then it's up to you to fix it. And I could feel the fires of hell coming up inside of me saying, what the heck? Who are you talking to me of righting the wrongs of this planet? Is that what you were doing? You look like you were sleeping in the streets and, you're drunk and dirty. And the guy said to me, who says that I'm not doing the exact, speaking the right words to the right person at the right time? And it kind of hit me. It was just unbelievable how that hit me. And I was still trying to figure out how to get back at him and, to verbally fight back at him. Because I was in a very angry, agitated, frustrated, hopeless frame of mind. And by the time I turned to him to speak to him, the spot next to me was empty. Now that was in 1992, in the fall. Fast forward to 2008, some friends had invited me to an art gallery. At this point, I lived in Eastern Ontario. I was in a new relationship. Life had transformed. And I'm at this art gallery, and there's this healer doing some special treatment, and it was a fundraiser for, sick kids or something. I said, here's my money, do whatever. I would like to experience this treatment. After the gentleman was done with his work, he says, by the way, Uriel says hi. I said, who is Uriel? Oh, it's your friend Uriel. Remember the guy from the park bench way back when? I said, what? I never heard of Uriel in my life. He says, well, he is the person in charge of keeping suicidal people, preventing them from committing suicide. And he is very proud of you. He's just telling me this.
He must have been an angel.
Well, and I asked the gentleman, I said, and who are you? And he said, I'm an incarnate angel. I mean, wow. I had gotten rid of my religious Catholic beliefs a long time ago. I didn't believe in angels, never mind an incarnate angel. But there was this gentleman standing in front of me, and he went to his desk and got a little picture. And there was a very stocky, short man that looked rather old in front of on this picture. But the man in front of me looked like a 30-year-old, athletic, handsome young dude. And I said, well, this is you? He said, that is me 12 months ago. And you've experienced a similar thing, but you just don't come from the angel world. You come from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And I mean, things like that happened quite often in my life. And I find it very encouraging and magical, because whenever I felt I needed something or needed some confirmation from the outside world that I was on the right track, that I could really, truly trust what was coming from within me, there generally would be something like that happening. I was on a funeral once, and a woman walked up to me and said, Hildegard? I said, yes. Have we met? She said, no. And she says, I need you to know there is somebody here that wants to speak to you. And I'm saying, what? So we went to a coffee shop after the funeral was done, and she named my grandfather's name, which is a German name. Not everybody can pronounce it. She was able to. And she told me that my grandfather had come and said, don't doubt yourself. Your spirit is guiding you, and you're doing the right thing, and I'm so very proud of you. Do not doubt yourself. As long as what you're doing is not against the law, it's not harming anybody, it doesn't leave permanent damage on you or anybody else, and you're coming from a point of love, compassion, gratitude, appreciation, all will be well. And you must stand for what you believe in. So you need to learn to establish some solid boundaries and not let people walk all over you. Mm-hmm. Which in essence was what Louis Maher had been telling me a long time ago, that assertiveness and self-love go hand in hand because they are both resonating in love and not in fear. Selfishness is a fearful act. Me. And this is what has happened on this planet. You know, we have forgotten that it's really not about me. It's about what is it that by me expressing the truth within myself and living according to what I believe to be right for me, what can I do to contribute to the people around me as well? And so I trust that our conversation will encourage maybe some of your listeners to listen within, and if in doubt, journal it out, you know, and see if whatever comes out of you tomorrow makes sense, and then make your decisions based on what comes from within you. Because I heard it said the heart is 5,000 times. Is it 5,000 times more powerful than our mind?
I don't know.
If we listen to our feelings, which are the guidance system of our soul, even though initially we might just feel pain, but as we work through the pain and we get to the bottom of all of those traumata and process them, the result is quite amazing. And for me, to sit here today and say, yes, I got my health back, I was able to raise my children with the information coming from the Andromedans, and then come across people like Alex Collier when I first got internet in the mid-90s, and I came across some of the work Alex Collier had done, and he has been in contact with Andromedans as well. And at some point I had a group at Ashtar Command website. There was like a forum. I communicated with people who had similar experiences. The whole walk-in experience became more natural, and it was easier for me to accept it as well, because for a while I kind of felt very lonely and isolated. And I'm very grateful to have met you, Kevin, a couple of years ago, when it was the very first time I actually spoke in public about my experiences. And I initially didn't want to do that, because while the children were younger and growing up, I did my best to keep my mouth shut and not say anything. Because me, for instance, not vaccinating my children, changing my diet, at some point I homeschooled my children and did a lot of things that society wasn't approving of, let's put it this way. And yet I did it. I had enough on my plate to deal with what entailed to look after a family. And Louis said, no, you have two missions. One is to raise your children to the light, which initially I didn't understand what it means, but now I do. And check, this is done. The next thing is to share my story and to make myself available to aid those who are interested in communicating with me, and hopefully I can make a difference to them. And then even, now do workshops and develop my book. I want to get this book out about my story, my journey. And I have a collection of poetry I'm working at, and I'm looking for somebody who can do some illustrations for this story that was given to me, that taught me about choosing fear or love. It's kind of, the human body is like a receiver transmitter station. I can dial an AM station, or I can dial into an FM. So whenever I'm feeling upset or sad or anxious, then I can be noticing this feeling and then consciously step back, take a breath, and then how can I override this thought? I know I'm afraid. I know it's something to do with my past. Yet how can I change my state? And we can consciously change how we feel simply by thinking about something that gave us incredible joy or something we have accomplished. And I remember at some point seeing a therapist, and I highly recommend people go and see help at some point. There are things I can do by myself, but then it gets to the point where I need somebody else as well. And it's not a sign of weakness, much to the contrary. I think when somebody goes and says, hey, I need to talk to somebody, can you help me? Or do you know somebody that I could talk to? Then we can reach a new level of understanding of ourselves.
We're just going to, Hildegard, we're just going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back after this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more than speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Richton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous. It is. Very dangerous. Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a 5th-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Good evening. We are speaking with Hildegard Gmeiner, a walk-in hybrid from Andromeda. and we've heard a lot in regards to what she has been through with this body transition that took place in her early 30s, and how that affected her, how it affected her life, and this integration of this seventh dimensional essence into the body of Hildegard. And I had a question for you, Hildegard. Karen, are you here too?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. The question I had for you, Hildegard, I am quite certain Louis Marr has been listening for the last hour. Am I correct?
Yes, indeed.
He has. Okay. I have a question for Louis Marr. Would he be interested? Would he be interested in speaking on the radio and passing a message, if he has a message?
Yes. First and foremost, Louis Marr and I, in many ways, are, how should I say this? We are one consciousness. I was apparently trained by, in the same group, the Walk-In Project group, and I volunteered to go here, and he stayed on the commuter ship, for lack of a better word, to provide the walk-in support. And there are apparently many of these groups active right now. And here is what he would like to say. First and foremost, the people on this earth need to realize that at all times have there been human beings who had contact with intelligences from beyond the earth. Reality is not limited through the third dimension, and the people we might have called the sages or our avatars or the genius of their time, they were able to tune their body, their receiver, into a frequency where information they were looking for was dropped into the collective realm, and they reached up to get it, whether they were a scientist or they were a farmer who needed to figure out a new way of growing their crop, or they could have been philosophers. So all cultures that we look at as ancient and more evolved or less evolved always had contact with people that we today might call off-planet or extraterrestrial. Secondly, the Walk-In Project of Andromeda was designed to enable the people on planet Earth to solve their own issues. There are streams of consciousness on this planet that would like nothing more than to have perpetual war on this planet, much like two children in the family, and I like this analogy, and hence Hildegard had to have children to really understand parenting from first hand. You can read all the parenting books you want, yet unless you have done it, you don't really know much about it. It's very theoretical. So when you're looking at the evolution of different civilizations or planetary constructs, there are those who are just a touch more evolved than the ones that are in kindergarten. The grade 1 student knows more, the grade 2 student knows more. The fifth dimensional conscious intelligences have a whole different angle of perspective than the people on planet Earth. And so it's very natural that we, from a 7D perspective, are feeding information to the 5D. And from there, it flowed into the 3D. There are incredible human beings on this planet who will bring forth writing material, some of it already is out, that explains how creation actually happens from the 16th dimension downward. And once this is common knowledge, a lot of what we are saying here is superfluous because you will understand what we're saying. So the message is this: fear, and it has been said before, false evidence appearing real, meaning whenever a human being resonates in fear, you're outside your operating frequency. You have a very unique energetic footprint, like you have a unique fingerprint as well. And when we are resonating as humans in a fear vibration, we have no access. Our antennas are not open to higher self, and from higher self connect with the aspects of our essence that go beyond the earthly time and space. So while the outer world and the powers at be, or the powers that were, want the individual to believe that life is difficult, it will only get worse, there is wars, there always will be, there will always be those who have and those who will have to suffer. That is only one program you can dial yourself into. And I would like you to also know that when you listen to that station, it will be consuming your entire being, and it will simultaneously block your access to your unique frequencies through which health, abundance, loving relationship, fulfillment through complete self-expression of what is your unique truth can bring about if you are tuning into your true nature and listen to your essence. And this is why Hildegard, as channel, if you so will, or an intuitive awareness consultant, is quite qualified to help people to implement their insights, their inner knowing, which is not just reflected out there in the world, bring it to manifestation so the rest of the world can see it. And in so doing, you are transforming your 3D reality and everything above that as well. So I hope I made myself clear in that I'd like to let you know there is not just hope, but there is massive physical evidence on the ground on planet Earth already that there are millions and millions and millions of people, consciousnesses that are awakening, and they are active in all facets of earthly life. And through that contribution, may you not be aware of it, but whatever you are aware of in your environment, that the world that you are living in, the relationships you have, your work, your family, your environment, you will already see that things are shifting. And if human beings only knew that world peace and galactic peace could be achieved simply by everybody desiring it. It's the desire for harmony. It's the desire for peace that can bring it about. Yet you can't force it outside of yourself unless one attains that on a deep level within the essence that animates the physicality you find yourself in at this point in time. So from our perspective, and I'm speaking here for the group of the Andromedan walk-in team, I'm very happy to see how this particular vehicle, as have many others, have fought through the thickets of confusion and doubt, and the challenges of integrating an awareness in a world that just wasn't existing 30 years ago. Now, in your time, 30 years is a long time. For us, it's not that big of a deal. Yet, by being in touch with the people, and we have various groups. I'm in charge of about 250 to 300 walk-ins that I'm currently in physicality on planet Earth. There are many, many others. They're from different planetary groups as well. And it's not by coincidence that, for instance, starting in the early 80s, if I'm not mistaken, many, many channelers from the Pleiadians started to appear on your Earth scene. And that was because the civilization from the Pleiades attained unity consciousness a long time ago. So they are what we call a level 1 society, whereas currently the peoples of planet Earth are a 0 consciousness society, which means people have all different levels of awareness. Now there are, again, currents on the planet. They want to sell under the banner of unity consciousness and peace, one world government, and want to centralize everything. However, people on Earth have a choice, and the most power comes from the individual when they learn to look inward and eliminate the fear patterns, beliefs, and behaviors, and learn to find love for self and come from a point of deep gratitude for what is in this very moment. Because that's how the shift in frequency is brought about. And that is also part of the reason for this planet still being where it is. For the potential has been for this planet to be destroyed many times over, and it's not going to be allowed, it's not going to happen, because other civilizations and other life would not tolerate that. Much like a mother will only entrust the one who has the ability to drive her vehicle responsibly to do so. So therefore, the children lighting up the playpen with nuclear bombs alerted the greater galactic community, and hence many intelligences from different realms have been in contact with people on Earth, and that's why we have many people coming forward now who are hybrids, who are walk-ins, who have had different experiences in contact with life forms from beyond this planet, because their existence has been denied by the manipulators on this planet for a very long time. And while it is difficult to believe, all will come to a good end. And I have to let this vehicle know all the time, it's okay, look how far you have come. Because being human, it is very difficult sometimes, also for Hildegard, to be in her unique vortex and resonate in the highest vibration possible. So it's an ongoing journey for her. Is there any particular questions you would like to ask? And I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to speak through Hildegard.
I always am honored to speak with you, Louimar. I really am, and I appreciate everything that you are sharing with our listeners. I'm one thing that has been shared with me that I've been asked to teach and to help explain, and perhaps I'm hoping you might be able to add some enlightenment to it, is in regards to the switching timelines with what people are referring to as the Mandela effect. Can you give me any more insight in regards to what is happening and why this is happening?
Well, it appears that as we, as civilizations, grow in awareness, timelines are becoming increasingly blurry, in that one comes out of the illusion that time actually exists. So I consider it less important to be stuck in how does one define a certain labels that a certain group of people now wants to stick on a certain issue, I consider it more important to focus on what is it that the individual human being has failed to pay attention to in their day-to-day activities, and what is it that you can transform so you have more pleasing life circumstances, you have more health, you feel more joyful, and you feel your needs, and these are not just to be the material needs, but spiritually are met. It seems to be so easy for humans to be stuck in a mental loop. The logical mind wants to push people into understanding things, but understand that there is no such thing as understanding everything. Because your mind is programmed to be stuck in something that has been already experienced. Yet as we advance in conscious awareness, the experiences we had in the past are no longer helping us in understanding the impressions that come at a rapidly increasing speed from our extrasense perceptions. Human beings focus too much on the 5D senses, while through the increased activity of photons coming off the great central sun through your solar system and through human DNA, so you have so-called fuel injectors coming up within inside of you, and suddenly you know things that you didn't know before, and yet you don't trust it, so you look outside, you want to find out what somebody else says about it, and then we get stuck in a habitual loop of wanting to figure things out. But once a human being realizes the mind is a very useless tool, figuring things out keeps you in a loop that never ends, and it doesn't help you go forward. So the Mandela effect, while it is correct, it's a blurring of the veils, it's a lifting of the veils, it's a becoming an awareness of everything simultaneously existing, and yet in the transformation of the present, you change the past, and you will definitely impact your future. Does that make any sense?
I think it does. I mean, once you're on a much higher level than I am, and I am just at the point of just grasping certain elements into my limited comprehension. So I'm truly honored that for you answering my question, and I think it does make sense. I mean, what I feel is that what ultimately it all comes down to is consciousness, and everything else is just an illusion. And
it's not just about it's consciousness. You're quite right, but what do you do with this conscious awareness? Where does the rubber hit the road? How does a human being take that new awareness and implement it so that it immediately impacts on how you're doing life, how you're treating your fellow man or woman or child? How do you have a new awareness impact your decision in your business on a daily basis? How are you now reacting to a circumstance out there? Or there's a new insight or a new aha, a new door in your consciousness opening for you? How do you use that information and apply it very practically here on the 3D Earth level? Because everything else is a waste of your time. Because human beings are on this planet to utilize their unique gifts and talents with which they all are endowed. So they may find happiness, joyfulness, levity, and reach the highest excitement. And in so doing, they automatically impact the people around them, much like a water drop that drops from a bucket into a puddle of water. It sends ripples out. So do you, because you are energy. As you take new insights gained and apply them, and you have done so. Everybody has done that, more or less consciously. The decisions that human beings make, whether they are conscious or unconscious, the accumulation of these decisions brought about your daily reality. You are today, as is the instrument Hildegard, because of choices made in the past. Conscious or unconscious in nature, the accumulative effect is the reality you have today. So if in today's reality there is something that does not you please, you then can choose, and this is the beauty of people on planet Earth, they have free will. And that cannot be interfered with. So you can choose something else. You can just adjust your belief system a tiny little bit. You choose to think one different thought. You choose to say some things different in your day. And as that accumulates over time, you create a completely different reality for yourself. It takes time, and yet it can be done.
Are you saying...
It doesn't have to take time. It
are
can
you
go
saying,
really fast.
Okay, is that kind of the same thing in regards to being able to access a parallel universe of a different alternate reality of the reality that we focus our concentration on?
Yes.
Wow.
If I tell you, have you been to New York, or tell me a city where you have been?
A city where I have been?
Yeah. A place you have visited and you like.
Okay. That's Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay, wonderful. So if I say to you, Kevin, please place yourself into your favorite location, Albuquerque, New Mexico, you are immediately there, are you not?
Yes.
And now if I ask you, what are you wearing? Who is with you? What does it feel like? You can generate that feeling at random.
Yes.
So by the instrument asking for help, very humbly, all the egos are gone. She no longer had any answers, nor did the experts in the 3D world. She was fresh out of answers. She dialed herself through intention into the help that she had aligned for her, or lined up for her, before she took on this incarnation. So simply by intent, a human can go and find answers from everywhere and from anybody. So it's a universal law of intention which draws to you that which you desire. Now, the most difficult part for humans is to get clear on what their desires are. Because many experiences and conditionings have taught the human you cannot have what you want. And so when you ask someone, what would you like? Most of the time people say, well, I don't want this, and I don't want that, and I don't want this. Well, your subconscious will continuously manufacture that which you don't want because don't doesn't paint a picture in your computer. Tell a child don't jump in the puddle, the child will jump in the puddle because the word don't doesn't create an image, and the subconscious operates in images. Mm-hmm. The beauty of that is if you can visualize what you want, you can feel it, you can believe it, you can achieve it. And the instrument was so sick that she couldn't do anything else but dream about what it would feel like to be running along the beach. The dog's running, the children is running, and she can run. And visualizing what you want to accomplish and feel what it would feel like sends out very powerful messages in what your scientists call the implicit reality. So the universe has an implicit and an explicit reality. The explicit reality is what you see outside of yourself. Implicit is what is invisible. Yet nonetheless, if you can feel it, I am happy, I'm healthy, I am so grateful, it is so much fun to be in communication with the Andromedas, then that's exactly what you achieve. The only challenge is this planet has been so dominated by emotions and energies and behaviors of fear. And that's why the manipulators do their best to bring about limitation, restriction, pain, trauma, division. And over time, human beings believe that illusion, that you are separate from one another. If humans knew how powerful they are, if they had the courage to really follow through on what their desires are, without talking themselves out of it all the time. The instrument has been very knowledgeable in how the body can mend itself. And over the decades has come across incredible tools, healing techniques, counselors, healers, you name it. Yet quite often did she experience that somebody is so tired of being tired, and she knows what can be done that would help the person, yet the person is so afraid to try that approach because that would mean they now no longer benefit from the pity they might get from their relations because they're now sick, no longer sick, or they now have to take responsibility for their own life. They can no longer depend on other people to be their perpetual caregivers. And yet it's in taking responsibility that the human being accesses their inner power. The universe cannot help, and there is no such thing as somebody help me. It's actually always you accessing a different aspect of yourself that then helps you or enables you to help yourself. So humanity cannot be a victim of any manipulators unless one allows the manipulator the power to manipulate. One of your great writers and wife of the American president, Eleanor Roosevelt once said, nobody can make you feel badly about yourself without your permission. Mm-hmm. In other words, nobody can make you be a victim of something unless
you gave them
want
permission
to be that victim. And so people on planet Earth can never be a victim of anybody else unless they put it into their lesson plan, if you so will, And then once the individual is no longer willing to be a victim, they then transform. When the student is ready, the teacher will show up. So the man on the park bench, or the book falling off the shelf, or a lady at a checkout counter suddenly saying things that make sense to you. And that's what makes human life so miraculous. That's when people go from desperation to exhilaration, because they suddenly get in touch with their implicit, unique energy vortex in which they put everything they desired. And it's less the material, it's the soul-felt happiness and joy that comes from trusting yourself, that you're saying the right things, doing the right things at the right time, and getting rid of the guilt, shame, the blame, low frequencies. So Andromedans are very much on the path of self-actualization, self-exploration, as a collective as well as individual. Our children, if you so will, go to school for 2,500 years. Human beings were designed to live for thousands of years also. Your time frame has been collapsed and restrained, and with it, humans took on beliefs, and they limit that when they're 50, they're already old, and they need to wait to die, and then they fall into the cycle of incarnation trap again. But it doesn't have to be that way. What you believe, you can achieve, and you can manifest it. And that's where, when people say, well, aren't you afraid to talk about these things? My instrument said to me, oh, what will people say? Will I not be punished for speaking what I will have to say about the Andromedan? And we can only respond to that. Those who want to manipulate and control and punish resonate at a totally different frequency. And besides, what's there to fear if you know that the physicality is not all there is to who you really are? This body can be burning, it can fall away, but the essence of you continues to live on. And people who had near-death experiences in many ways are very privileged because they have experienced that. They're now conscious of the fact that if that body is dropping by the wayside, much like you take off your sweater or your shirt at night before you go to bed and you put on a t-shirt or something, the body is just like that. And there is an incredible amount of freedom to be had once a human being frees himself of that dogma of the 3D programming. And joy is the best defense ever. If people want to insult and belittle and critique, and you just joyfully say thank you for your input, it is so disarming. Nobody can do anything to you. And I like to tell you the story about the elephant. The little elephant tied to a tree with a big rope. The elephant was just a couple of days old. And then over years, the elephant gets habituated to that chain or rope around the foot. But now the elephant is mighty and powerful and could easily break the chain. Yet, the elephant became accustomed to the restraint of the chain. And it's that barrier that is the most difficult to break through. That which you think gives you safety and that which you have been habituated to believe is possible. Once you can throw that, leave that behind you, and gradually become comfortable with the unknown, life in your physicality becomes so much more joyous and wondrous. And the coincidences that happen, then you will no longer view as coincidence, but recognize as the synchronicities actually being your true nature. This is how humans are to live. Things are to synchronistically happen with ease and grace. Humans were designed to walk through this earthly experience. And we trust that in a very short period of time, humanity will be able to achieve that.
Wow. That story of the elephant is just absolutely perfect. I'm going to remember that, and I'm going to use that analogy. And yes, when I was awakened, and then all of a sudden, the synchronicities began, and they have not stopped. And I continuously am always the conscious universe, living universe, is always speaking to me because I hear it now, and it's always there, and it's always giving me the answers because I see it now and I hear it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I meant to ask Karen.
I wanted to leave you with this one image. Imagine a flowering meadow. It's springtime. And the meadow has lots of wildflowers. Yet the nights have been too cold, and the wildflowers have not yet shown their true color. Humankind is that meadow, and it's still somewhat nighttime, and there's still some darkness. However, as the sun comes up, you see one flower show their true colors, and another one showing their true colors. There may be a musician over here, and a writer over there, and an innovator on the other side of the meadow. And before long, the crescendo of all these flowers popping open almost simultaneously. And that beautiful crescendo of all the flowers opening up is the analogy I want to use for the opening of human consciousness. Because whoever tried to keep human beings down, they're knowing they are failing, and they have written about it already 100 years ago in their writings. They are published on the planet. So one might be able to crush one flower, but the ultimate advancement and acceleration of the collective human consciousness can and will not be stopped. And that is something that I think you all can rejoice in, and I would like to thank you all for listening and giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. And I'd like to thank my instrument for allowing me to flow through, because she can be very reluctant and resistant, and she gets very scared. And no, she is not a channeler, and she's quite right, she's not a channeler, because we are so integrated. She doesn't have to go into some deep meditation to let me come forward. But there are a few of the anxieties still to wash away from her as well. But I hope that this will give you an image to hold on to.
Yes.
And be aware of images to come your way that may not initially make sense to you, and I mean to all of the listeners listening to us now, because your, let's call them extrasensory aspects and machinery. It's not a good word, but you understand what I mean. Speaks to you through your dreams, through images, through very subtle impulses. I heard it said once that a person said, there's a whispering. It is so subtle. You can barely feel it as a wind on your nose when your true self, through cosmos, comes and talks to you. There is no need for a ghetto blaster. Ignore the ghetto blasters. Go and become more peaceful. go to a quiet place and listen to that subtle, ever so gentle impulse from within, and ever so trusting follow those impulses. And then over time you will see a marvelous unfolding as this instrument now can look back for 30 years, where she says, well, I come to believe in you, Louis Ma, even though I know you're not necessarily a person, but whatever information I received by journaling what you wrote, it helped me to get to where I am today. And to me, it's like with everybody, a good teacher is one where he can say the student rose above him or her. And I'm very privileged to be able to say the same. So thank you very much for having me. Is there anything else you would like me to elaborate on?
Yes, first of all, for the audience, for the last 45 minutes, I have not been speaking to Hildegard. I have been speaking to Louis Marr in Andromeda. This is Louis Marr who's been speaking for the last 45 minutes. Okay, this is not Hildegard, this is Louis Marr. I know this because I know Hildegard. She and I have been friends for 3 years. And I know Hildegard's personality, and I know when Louis Marr is speaking. And this has been Louis Marr for the last 45 minutes. So I'm very, very honored to be able to speak with you directly, Louis Marr. Karen, did you have any questions for Louis Marr?
I actually do. I was very touched myself by the information from Alex Collier and his courage in bringing that forward. And I've just recently become aware, years and years ago, I used to write these science fiction stories, and now I'm realizing that probably that wasn't fiction, that it was some kind of historical information that, for whatever reason, I needed to know, and it did have to do with the Patal, which is something Alex Collier talked about. And I was sort of kind of wondering why I need to know this and what can I do with this information, because it's just been sitting with me for, 30 years, I think. And I'm being brought into maybe a space to discuss it. And I enjoy all the information I get, but why this particular information would be important for myself or perhaps others?
See, there is no such thing as fiction. There are only those who see things before others can see it. And sometimes it puts the mind of the writer at ease by having him or her label it as such. Because information that is not quite ready to be processed by a human consciousness at the time it is received can at times be very disturbing. But when the writer then says it's fiction, suddenly it's just a story, and it doesn't really enter the sphere of the writer on a very deep level, if that makes sense. So as to what specifically was the reason for you writing this story, I would like to ask you to first and foremost read your work again with the awareness you have today and become aware of the messages that may be valid for your current life circumstance. So there may be answers in it for you. And then from there, I am certain it will become clear to you as to how to share the fiction manuscript, in what form to share it with others, and if at all. Because some writings is simply designed to help accelerate the consciousness of the writer. The instrument had many, many pieces of writing and about 20 years of journal burned up in a house fire. And she was very distressed and frustrated about that. And it took her many years to realize that what she had written was for her own growth and understanding only, and it was not ever designed to be shared with anybody. The story that is to be shared with the world, interestingly enough, was burnt up in the fire. However, she had completely forgotten that she had shared it with somebody, and this particular lady had a hard copy of that manuscript at her home, and she was presented with it many, many years after the fire. So if that resonates with you, so question 1, reread it and look at what is in there today that you might use as an insight for your current situation, for your current life circumstance. And then secondly, meditate and reflect on which aspects of that fiction manuscript you would like to share, where and how to best share it. And it is very important for you to know that humans love films, stories, music, because when the human mind is entertained, messages get slipped by much faster than when put in a classroom and there's somebody talking at you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very, very helpful. And thanks for sharing about the fire, because I lost quite a bit of it just in catastrophic moves where I lost most everything I had. So that makes me feel better. It's in my heart. That's the important
thing. That is the thing, because being human, one becomes attached to things. And yet, again, as we are maturing, and I say we, because I have, through the instrument, firsthand experienced the human emotion and the traumas and how hard it is to detach from material possession. Yet it's an absolutely necessary part of the human evolutionary path. For those of you who are on the spiritual path, as you all are, that are listening to me now, letting go and trusting amidst of the pain and the confusion and the devastation that whatever is happening is to the highest good of all involved. Now I say this again, whatever is happening is to the highest good of the evolution of all involved. Because each soul had a contract with somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. And in so doing, there's a whole lot of learning that oftentimes we ignore, the instrument ignored, while the house is on fire and while everything was lost. The understanding of what was gained comes generally much later. And for some people, sadly, they cannot free themselves from that loss. And they are sad and depressed for a very long time. Yet, you are designed to overcome it, and then, like the analogy of the flower meadow, you will blossom on a higher level of understanding. And things will flow with ease and grace. If it is not meant to be, you cannot force it. Yet the third dimensional education was, you have to push harder, you have to turn harder, you have to. No, when things do not flow easily and effortlessly, and that doesn't mean you don't have to do anything. Yes, you do. However, when the energy is not behind it, then walk back, step back and see, okay, so which things give me the highest excitement? Which things have energy behind it? So case in point, the instrument, reluctant to speak at a cosmic expo, then she meets interesting people, gets initially excited about having a group come together and do an experiences gathering in Toronto. Yet she's still hesitant, she doesn't want to do it. However, then things came to a head in a very easy and effortless way. So to speak, the environment around her conspired to bring that first gathering about. And before you know it, 25 people were crammed into a tiny little room, all very happily to be there. And the instrument felt, wow, that was easy. And it made her happy. And Karen was witness to that. So that's where the energy was leading her.
Mm-hmm. Louis Marr, how can I help Hildegard?
The best way to help her is to encourage her, like you did today, to express what is within her. Because the instrument herself oftentimes feels that what she is to contribute isn't really all that significant and isn't that important. Yet whenever she does, the feedback is as such that people do benefit. So let her be and encourage her to speak and share. And, everything is divinely timed. I think the fact that you two souls put each other in each other's way is helpful in itself. So, as I said earlier, sometimes we all need somebody to talk to. This is my very first mission where I am in charge of supporting walk-ins on my own. Mm-hmm. I have been involved in these operations many times. However, I was not in charge completely on my own.
Oh,
so I need support as well. So
we're just out of time. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at higher risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the danger, unafraid.
Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said.
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.